Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Victor Mercer could trace the exact moment his 15-year marriage began to crumble. It wasn't when he discovered the text messages, or when his wife's perfume changed, or even when she started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. No, it was much earlier, perhaps the day Laurel Mercer met Dominic Thorne, the silver-tongued new CEO of Pinnacle Industries. Victor ran his calloused hands through his salt and pepper hair as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. Tonight was their 15th anniversary, and he'd spent months planning the perfect celebration. The banquet hall at the Westlake Country Club gleamed with crystal chandeliers and tables adorned with white lilies, Laurel's favorite. A pianist played softly in the corner, the melody haunting and somehow foreboding. "Are you ready?" Laurel appeared in the doorway, resplendent in a form-fitting burgundy dress that hugged every curve. At 42, she was more beautiful than the day they'd met, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, emerald eyes sharp and calculating. "Almost," Victor said, his voice low and measured. "Just nervous about tonight." Laurel's laughter was like wind chimes in a storm. "Why would you be nervous? It's just a party." "Not just any party," Victor reminded her. 15 years deserves something special. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Victor had built his construction company from nothing, a single truck and toolbox, to one of the most respected residential developers in the state. He wasn't a fancy man with fancy words, but he provided a good life. Their sprawling suburban home, the private schools for their twins Alexander and Sophia, now in their freshman year of college, the vacations to Europe and the Caribbean, all from his sweat and determination. Yet lately, Victor had felt Laurel's growing disdain. Ever since she'd taken the executive position at Pinnacle Industries 6 months ago, she'd changed. New friends, new clothes, new ambitions. The down-to-earth woman who once helped him review blueprints at the kitchen table now dismissed his work as quaint at dinner parties. The banquet hall filled with guests, longtime friends, business associates, family members including his aging mother who'd flown in from Arizona, and Laurel's coworkers. Victor noticed how Laurel's attention gravitated toward a specific table where Dominic Thorne held court, his perfect teeth flashing as he regaled his audience with what Victor assumed were tales of corporate conquest. At 55, Thorne exuded the confidence of a man who believed the world existed for his pleasure. His designer suit, his manicured nails, his carefully tousled silver hair. Everything about him screamed privilege. Unlike Victor, who'd built everything with his own hands, Thorne had inherited his position from his father, a fact Victor had learned through discreet inquiries. "Victor, there you are." His old friend Bennett clapped him on the shoulder. "Quite the shindig you've put together." "Thanks, Ben." Victor smiled, genuinely pleased to see a friendly face. "How's Diane?" "Fighting with the caterers, as usual." Bennett laughed, gesturing toward his wife, who was indeed having an animated conversation with a harried-looking server. "Listen, I want to talk to you about something." Before Bennett could continue, a microphone squealed. Victor turned to see Laurel standing at the podium he'd arranged for the toast later in the evening. "If I could have everyone's attention," Laurel announced, her voice carrying across the room. "I'd like to invite my boss, Dominic Thorne, to say a few words." Victor frowned. This wasn't part of the program. The speech segment was meant to begin with his own heartfelt tribute to their years together, followed by a video montage he'd secretly compiled of their life journey. Thorne approached the microphone with the swagger of a peacock, nodding appreciatively at the applause Laurel encouraged. "What a lovely gathering," Thorne began, his voice smooth as aged bourbon. "When Laurel invited me, I was touched to be included in such a personal milestone. 15 years is quite an achievement these days." His eyes scanned the room before landing on Victor with something akin to amusement. "Though I must say, knowing Laurel as I do now, I'm surprised she settled for construction." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the crowd. Victor tensed, his jaw clenching. Thorne continued. In just 6 months at Pinnacle, Laurel has proven herself to be extraordinary. Executive material through and through. Someone destined for greater things than domestic contentment. Victor felt Bennett's hand on his arm, steadying him as Thorne's thinly veiled insults continued for another excruciating minute. When Thorne finally relinquished the microphone, Laurel was beaming at him with undisguised admiration. The rest of the evening passed in a blur for Victor. He mechanically went through the motions, cutting the anniversary cake, accepting congratulations, smiling for photographs. But inside, something had hardened. He observed Laurel and Thorne throughout the night. The lingering touches, the inside jokes, the way her eyes followed him around the room. At midnight, as the last guest departed, Victor found himself alone in the now-empty banquet hall. The video montage he'd created remained unplayed, the heartfelt speech undelivered. The evening that was supposed to celebrate their love had instead exposed its absence. His phone buzzed with a text from Bennett. "Call me tomorrow. There's something you need to know." As Victor drove home in silence, Laurel chattering about how absolutely brilliant Dominic had been, he realized their 15-year foundation had been built on sand, and the tide was coming in. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. The morning after the anniversary party, Victor retreated to his home office, ostensibly to catch up on work, but primarily to avoid Laurel. The humiliation of Thorne's speech still burned like acid in his stomach. His phone rang. "Bennett. I've been waiting for your call," Victor said, his voice gruff from a sleepless night. "Sorry, man. Got caught up with a client emergency." Bennett paused. "Look, I've been debating whether to tell you this, but after last night, you deserve to know." Victor's grip tightened on the phone. "Just say it. Diane's cousin works in HR at Pinnacle. There's been talk about Laurel and Thorne. Multiple overnight business trips where they booked connecting rooms. Late meetings where no one else was invited. Office rumors about them being spotted at the Meridian Hotel across town." The Meridian, an upscale boutique hotel known for its discretion. "How long?" Victor asked, his voice eerily calm. "At least 3 months, for what Diane's cousin has pieced together." "I'm sorry, Vic. I should have told you sooner." After hanging up, Victor sat motionless, staring at his wedding photo on the desk. The pieces were fitting together now. Laurel's sudden interest in her appearance, the unexplained expenses on their credit card statements, the increasing emotional distance. His computer chimed with an email notification, a reminder to pay their twins' college tuition for the upcoming semester. Alexander and Sophia, both studying at prestigious East Coast universities, were the pride of his life. He'd worked 80-hour weeks to ensure they'd have every opportunity he never had. The door to his office swung open, and Laurel entered without knocking. "We need to talk about last night," she announced, perching on the edge of his desk in a power pose he recognized from her corporate training seminars. "Yes, we do," Victor agreed, closing his laptop. "You embarrass me," Laurel stated flatly. "You barely spoke to Dominic, then disappeared during his important networking session. Do you realize how that made me look?" Victor studied his wife's face, searching for any trace of the woman he'd married. "Your boss insulted me in front of our friends and family at our anniversary party, and you're concerned about how you looked?" Laurel waved a dismissive hand. "You're being oversensitive. Dominic was making a joke. Business humor. You wouldn't understand. Is that what this is about?" Victor asked quietly. "You think I'm beneath you now? Beneath your precious Dominic?" Her eyes narrowed. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your inferiority complex is showing. Dominic has opened doors for me that your construction business never could." "Doors," Victor repeated. "Or hotel rooms." The color drained from Laurel's face, quickly replaced by a flush of anger. "What exactly are you implying?" "The Meridian Hotel. Connecting rooms on business trips. Late-night meetings." Victor's voice remained steady. "Ring any bells?" Laurel's expression shifted from shock to calculation in seconds. "Who told you that?" "Bennett. His wife is a notorious gossip spreading unfounded rumors." "Are they unfounded?" Victor pressed. Instead of answering, Laurel stood and paced the room. "This is ridiculous. I'm not dignifying these accusations with a response. Your non-answer is response enough. Victor rose from his chair, suddenly feeling every day of his 45 years. You know what your problem is, Victor? Laurel spun to face him. You've never understood ambition. You've been content with your little company, your predictable life. Some of us want more. And more includes sleeping with your boss? The slap came swiftly, catching Victor across the cheek. In 15 years of marriage, through arguments and crises, Laurel had never struck him. How dare you, she hissed. Victor touched his cheek, feeling a strange sense of clarity wash over him. I want you to leave. This is my house too, Laurel retorted. A house my little company paid for, Victor said. But fine, I'll go. He moved toward the door, but Laurel blocked his path. Wait, this has gotten out of hand. Let's calm down and discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss, Victor replied, attempting to step around her. Laurel gripped his arm with surprising strength. You need to listen to me. Dominic is important, not just to me, but to us. He's invited me to join the executive retreat next month. This could mean a promotion, a significant raise. I don't care. You should. Laurel's voice rose. And you need to apologize to him for your behavior last night. Victor stared at her in disbelief. Apologize? To the man who humiliated me? To the man you're sleeping with? Stop saying that. Laurel's fingernails dug into his arm. You need to apologize for embarrassing him, or we're through. I'm serious, Victor. Victor looked at her blankly, searching her face for any sign of the woman he'd loved for nearly 2 decades. Laurel's expression hardened. He's my boss, and far more valuable than you, loser. The words hung in the air between them, impossible to take back. In that moment, Victor saw with perfect clarity what he'd been denying for months. Their marriage was already over. Without a word, he gently removed her hand from his arm, walked upstairs to their bedroom, and began packing a suitcase. Laurel followed, her anger transforming into panic as she realized the line she'd crossed. Victor, wait. I didn't mean that. You know how I get when I'm angry. Her voice took on the cajoling tone she used when trying to manipulate him. We can work through this. Couples therapy, maybe a vacation, just the two of us. Victor continued packing methodically. Clothes, toiletries, his grandfather's pocket watch, essential documents from his bedside safe. He worked silently, as if alone in the room. Are you seriously going to throw away 15 years over one comment? Laurel demanded, her voice rising. This is childish, Victor. Running away instead of facing our problems. Still, he remained silent, zipping the suitcase closed. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back, she threatened. Victor finally looked at her. I don't intend to. He carried his suitcase downstairs, grabbed his laptop and car keys, and walked out the front door. Laurel's threats and pleas followed him to his truck, but he didn't look back. As he drove away from the house they'd built together, Victor felt something unexpected, not sadness or rage, but relief. He checked into a hotel across town and spent the night staring at the ceiling, planning his next move. For the first time in years, the future was entirely his to shape. Chapter 3. Aftermath and Revelations. 7 days after walking out, Victor sat in his extended stay hotel room reviewing legal documents. His lawyer, Patricia Walden, had moved with impressive efficiency, filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and drafting preliminary asset division proposals. His phone had been a battlefield of emotions, desperate voicemails from Laurel alternating between tearful pleas and vicious threats, concerned messages from friends who'd heard conflicting stories, and confused texts from their twins who were being fed Laurel's version of events. Victor had responded only to the latter, assuring Alexander and Sophia that while their parents were having problems, his love for them remained steadfast. He promised a full explanation when they returned from college for spring break in 2 weeks. A knock at his door disrupted his concentration. Not expecting visitors, Victor approached cautiously and checked the peephole. Laurel stood in the hallway, makeup streaked by tears, hair disheveled, a carefully constructed image of distress. Victor considered ignoring her, but decided confrontation was inevitable. He opened the door, but blocked the entrance. What do you want, Laurel? Please, she whispered. Can I come in? Just to talk. We have nothing to discuss that can't go through our lawyers. Lawyers? Laurel's eyes widened. Victor, you can't be serious about divorce. We hit a rough patch. All couples do. Infidelity isn't a rough patch. It's a choice you made. Victor's voice remained steady. Multiple times. It wasn't like that, Laurel insisted. It was a mistake. A moment of weakness that got out of hand. I've ended it. Completely. When? Before or after I left? Laurel hesitated, and Victor nodded, having his answer. Let me in, she pleaded. The neighbors are watching. Against his better judgment, Victor stepped aside, allowing her entry but maintaining distance. Laurel immediately launched into her prepared speech. I know I've hurt you terribly, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I've taken a leave of absence from work. I'm looking into therapy. I've realized what's truly important. And what prompted this epiphany? Victor asked, suspicion evident in his tone. Laurel's eyes darted away. I just missed you. Realized what I was throwing away. Try again, Victor said flatly. The truth this time. Laurel sank onto the edge of the bed, her facade crumbling. Dominic, he ended things when you left. Said he didn't sign up for divorce drama. Then he reassigned my projects to his new assistant. Her voice hardened. That 26-year-old bimbo with fake credentials who's suddenly his protege. Victor laughed without humor. So, I'm your backup plan. How flattering. No, it's not like that. This whole thing made me see clearly. I was blinded by ambition, by Dominic's false promises, and by the apartment he was going to set you up in? Victor asked. Laurel's head snapped up. How did you know about that? Victor finished for her. I have my sources. In truth, Bennett's contact at Pinnacle had provided more information than Victor initially shared, including Thorne's pattern of setting up apartments for his special executives before eventually discarding them for newer models. It wasn't serious, Laurel backpedaled. Just talk. Just like the divorce papers were just talk. Victor retrieved an envelope from the desk and handed it to her. Consider yourself served. Laurel's hands trembled as she opened the envelope, scanning the documents with growing horror. You can't do this. The prenup expired after 10 years. I'm entitled to half of everything. Read further, Victor suggested. The infidelity clause doesn't expire. Their prenuptial agreement, insisted upon by Victor's mother, who had lost everything in her own divorce, included provisions regarding adultery that significantly limited Laurel's claims to their joint assets. This won't hold up, Laurel insisted, though uncertainty flashed in her eyes. And the children are adults now, Victor reminded her, though I'm sure they'll be interested to hear about their mother's extracurricular activities. Laurel's expression darkened. You wouldn't dare turn them against me. I won't have to lie to them, Victor replied. Will you? A tense silence filled the room before Laurel tried another approach, moving toward him with practiced vulnerability, her hand reaching for his arm. Victor, please. 15 years. 2 children. Don't throw it all away. Her voice dropped to a seductive whisper. I still love you. We can start fresh. Victor gently removed her hand, reminded of how she'd used the same gesture to stop him from leaving a week ago. You don't love me, Laurel. You love security. There's a difference. Is there someone else? Laurel demanded suddenly. Is that what this is about? Victor shook his head, almost pitying her inability to comprehend his position. No, this is about self-respect. Something I lost sight of while trying to make you happy. Their conversation was interrupted by Victor's phone ringing. The caller ID showed Bennett's name. I should take this, Victor said, effectively dismissing her. Laurel gathered the divorce papers, her vulnerability replaced by cold fury. This isn't over. You'll regret this, Victor. I promise you that. As she stormed out, slamming the door behind her, Victor answered his phone. You okay? Bennett asked. Diane saw Laurel heading toward your hotel earlier. I'm fine, Victor assured him. Better than fine, actually. I've been thinking about that land development proposal you brought me last year. Still interested in a partner? As Victor discussed business opportunities with his old friend, his mind was already moving forward. Laurel's visit had confirmed what he already knew. The woman he'd married was gone, if she had ever truly existed at all. But her parting threat lingered. Knowing Laurel, she wouldn't accept defeat gracefully. And Victor suspected that Dominic Thorne, with his ego and resources, might prove a dangerous enemy. For the first time in years, Victor felt truly awake. The comfortable numbness of his marriage had been replaced by something sharper, more vital. If Laurel and Thorne wanted war, he would not disappoint them. Chapter 4. Strategic Maneuvers. 3 weeks after serving Laurel with divorce papers, Victor moved into a downtown penthouse apartment overlooking the river. The space was minimalist and modern, nothing like the traditional suburban home he'd shared with Laurel. This was intentional. New life, new surroundings. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, nursing a glass of bourbon as he gazed at the city lights reflecting on the water. His phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "Dad, what's going on? Mom says you're having a midlife crisis." Victor sighed. The twins had returned from college for spring break the previous week, and Laurel had wasted no time poisoning the well. When he met with Alexander and Sophia for dinner, they'd been distant, parroting phrases that clearly originated with their mother. Temporary insanity, throwing away our family, embarrassing behavior. He had resisted the urge to reveal Laurel's infidelity, not wanting to drag the children into their mess. But Laurel had shown no such restraint in manipulating their sympathies. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Patricia Walden, his divorce attorney, holding a leather portfolio. "Sorry for the late visit," she said, striding into the apartment with the confidence of someone who charged $500 an hour. "But you'll want to see this immediately." Patricia, a formidable woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for ruthlessness in divorce proceedings, laid out several documents on Victor's kitchen island. Laurel's attorney filed a counterproposal today. "She's going after everything. The house, your business, even your mother's inheritance." Patricia pointed to specific clauses, and she's claiming emotional abuse as grounds to invalidate the prenup. Victor's expression remained neutral. "That was expected." "There's more," Patricia continued. "She scheduled a mediation session for next Monday without consulting us, and she's requesting temporary spousal support of $15,000 monthly during proceedings." Victor raised an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" "She claims she sacrificed her career to support yours and raise your children, despite the fact that she's been employed throughout your marriage and the children are adults." Patricia's tone held professional disdain. "Standard tactics, but aggressively pursued." "And Thorne? Any mention of him?" "Not directly, but she's listed him as a character witness." Patricia studied Victor carefully. "You seem remarkably calm about all this." Victor offered a tight smile. "I anticipated most of this." Laurel's nothing if not predictable when cornered. "Well, there's one thing she probably didn't anticipate. Remember that private investigator I recommended?" Patricia slid an unmarked envelope across the counter. "He's been surprisingly productive for only 2 weeks of work." Victor opened the envelope to find photographs of Laurel and Dominic Thorne entering the Meridian Hotel on multiple dates, time-stamped receipt copies for champagne room service, and transcripts of damning text messages obtained through methods Victor didn't care to question. "This should nullify her claims about the prenup," Patricia noted. "But there's another matter. The PI discovered something interesting about Thorne's business practices." Patricia produced another document, financial records showing a pattern of suspicious transfers between Pinnacle Industries and offshore accounts linked to Thorne personally. "This isn't directly related to your divorce," Patricia clarified, "but it could provide leverage if things get ugly." Thorne wouldn't want this information reaching his board of directors. Victor studied the documents thoughtfully. "Let's hold these in reserve. For now, I want to proceed by the book." After Patricia left, Victor returned to the window, his mind working through possibilities like a chess player analyzing moves. The evidence against Laurel and Thorne was compelling, but Victor knew his wife well enough to recognize that public humiliation would only fuel her vindictiveness. His phone rang. "Bennett, you sitting down?" Bennett asked without preamble. "What's happened?" "Laurel showed up at your office today. Tried to access financial records, claiming she needed them for tax purposes. When Margot refused, Laurel threatened to fire her." Victor's construction company office manager, Margot Wheeler, had been with him for 12 years. longer than any other employee. Margot called security? Better, Bennett chuckled. She reminded Laurel that as per the company bylaws, only majority shareholders can terminate staff. Then she showed her the door, literally walked her out while explaining employment law loud enough for the entire office to hear. Victor allowed himself a small smile. I'll have to give Margot a bonus. There's more, Bennett continued, his tone sobering. Word around town is that Thorne's been talking to your clients, suggesting your personal problems might affect ongoing projects. 2 of them call me asking if it was true you were facing bankruptcy. Victor's grip tightened on his phone. Attacking his reputation was crossing a line. His business wasn't just his livelihood. It represented 20 years of sweat and sacrifice. Thanks for the heads up, Victor said, his voice deceptively calm. I'll handle it. After hanging up, Victor made another call to Hayden Foster, his financial advisor. It's time to activate Contingency Plan B, Victor instructed, and set up a meeting with Sullivan for tomorrow morning. Keith Sullivan was the chairman of First Regional Bank and a longtime client of Victor's construction company. The bank had financed several of Victor's developments over the years, creating a relationship of mutual benefit and respect. The next morning, Victor sat across from Sullivan in the banker's private office, outlining a proposal that would protect his business from Laurel's claims while simultaneously securing funding for an ambitious new project, one that would directly compete with a development Thorne had been pursuing for months. Risky timing, Sullivan noted, reviewing the business plan, with the divorce proceedings and market conditions, which is precisely why it will succeed, Victor countered. Everyone, including Thorne, will expect me to play defense. They won't see this coming. Sullivan studied Victor with newfound respect. You've changed, Mercer. Clarity will do that, Victor replied. Do we have a deal? Sullivan extended his hand. We do, but watch your back. Thorne has friends in high places. So do I, Victor said, shaking the banker's hand firmly. So do I. That evening, as Victor reviewed contracts in his new penthouse, his phone rang with an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Mercer? A young woman's voice. This is Natalie Quinn. I was Dominic Thorne's executive assistant before your wife took over my projects. Victor sat straighter. What can I do for you, Ms. Quinn? It's what I can do for you, Natalie replied. I think we have a mutual interest in seeing Dominic Thorne get what he deserves. Victor listened as Natalie outlined her story. Hired with promises of mentorship, subjected to Thorne's advances, then sidelined when she refused them, only to watch the same pattern begin with Laurel. Why come to me? Victor asked when she finished. Because you have resources I don't, Natalie answered frankly. And because I've seen what happens to people who cross Dominic alone. What exactly are you offering? Access, Natalie said simply. I still have my company credentials. And Dominic never changes his passwords. He's arrogant that way. Victor considered her proposal carefully. An inside source at Pinnacle could prove invaluable, but he needed to verify her motives. Meet me tomorrow, he finally said. Noon at Riverside Cafe. We'll discuss terms. As Victor ended the call, he received a text from Alexander. Dad, we need to talk. Sophia, and I know about Mom and her boss. Why didn't you tell us? Victor stared at the message, wondering who had revealed the truth to his children and what this meant for his carefully calculated plans. The chessboard had just become more complicated. Chapter 5, Gathering Forces. The Riverside Cafe bustled with lunch patrons, providing both crowd cover and ambient noise, perfect for discreet conversations. Victor arrived early, selecting a corner table with a view of both entrances. At precisely noon, a young woman entered. Natalie Quinn was in her late 20s, professional in a navy blazer and pencil skirt, with intelligent eyes that scanned the room methodically before spotting Victor. Mr. Mercer, she greeted, sliding into the seat across from him. Thank you for meeting me. Victor studied her. How did you know who I was? Company holiday party last December, Natalie explained. You came to pick up your wife. Dominic made a point of commenting on your, how did he put it? Quaint blue-collar success story. Victor nodded, remembering the event. Before we continue, I need to understand your motivation, Ms. Quinn. Revenge can be satisfying, but it's rarely profitable on its own. Natalie's polite smile cooled. Direct. I appreciate that. She placed her phone on the table, showing a recording app. Do you mind? For mutual protection. Victor gestured his consent, and she pressed record. 6 months ago, I filed a sexual harassment complaint against Dominic Thorne with Pinnacle's HR department. Natalie began. 2 weeks later, I was transferred to the data processing division, effectively demoted. The HR director, Martin Wells, explained that it was a lateral move while my complaints were investigated. Let me guess, Victor interjected. The investigation found no evidence of wrongdoing. Precisely, Natalie confirmed. What they didn't know was that I kept records, texts, emails, voice recordings. But when I tried to escalate to the board of directors, Martin informed me that my employment contract included a binding arbitration clause. Convenient for Thorne, Victor observed. It gets worse. Last month, I received notice that my position was being eliminated due to departmental restructuring. My termination package included a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from discussing any aspect of my employment or termination. Which you didn't sign. I requested time to review it with my attorney, Natalie clarified. That window closes next week. Once I sign, I'm legally silenced. If I don't sign, I'll lose my severance and health insurance. Victor leaned back, processing this information. So you're not just seeking revenge. You want justice and compensation. Is that so unreasonable? Natalie challenged. Not at all, Victor assured her. I just needed to understand your full motivation. A server approached, and they paused to order drinks. Once alone again, Victor continued. What exactly do you have access to at Pinnacle? Natalie pulled out a tablet. Dominic uses the same password for everything. His first Porsche's license plate number. I still have remote access to his calendar, emails, and the executive project management system. I can also access the secure document server where board presentations are stored. She navigated through several screens, showing Victor examples of the information she could retrieve. Impressive, Victor acknowledged, but also illegal if discovered. Hence this meeting, Natalie replied coolly. I'm offering information that could help your situation. In return, I want a legal team to represent me in negotiating a proper settlement from Pinnacle. That seems reasonable, Victor agreed. But I'll need proof of your claims against Thorne to justify my involvement. Natalie hesitated before retrieving a USB drive from her purse. This contains everything. The original harassment documentation, recordings, emails, and HR correspondence. I've kept it separate from any company devices. Victor accepted the drive. I'll have my legal team review this. If they confirm its validity, we have a deal. There's one more thing, Natalie added. Your wife wasn't Thorne's first married conquest at Pinnacle. There were at least 3 others I know of during my time there, and they all followed the same pattern. Almost exactly. Flattery, professional advancement, an affair, promises of a future together, then abandonment when he grew bored. Natalie's expression hardened. The difference is, your wife seems to have abandoned you before Thorne could abandon her. Victor's jaw tightened. That's between Laurel and me. Of course, Natalie acknowledged. I simply thought you should know the full context. Their conversation was interrupted by Victor's phone vibrating with a text from Sophia. Meeting you at your office at 3. Alex coming too. Need to talk face to face. After finalizing arrangements with Natalie, Victor headed to his construction company headquarters. He found the twins waiting in his office. Alexander, tall and serious like his father, and Sophia, sharp-eyed and analytical. Dad, Sophia began without preamble. Why didn't you tell us about Mom's affair? Victor closed the office door. I didn't want to put you in the middle of our problems. But Mom had no problem doing exactly that, Alexander pointed out bitterly. She's been telling us you had some kind of breakdown, that you abandoned her without explanation. How did you discover the truth? Victor asked. The twins exchanged glances before Sophia answered. Aunt Diane. She couldn't stand watching Mom lie to us anymore. Bennett's wife had always been fond of the twins, treating them like the children she and Bennett couldn't have. We confronted Mom, Alexander continued. She denied it at first, then tried to justify it, saying you had been emotionally distant for years. Then we found the texts, Sophia added, her expression grim. She left her phone unlocked during her shower. The messages from Thorne were explicit. Victor sighed heavily. I'm sorry you had to learn about it that way. Why are you apologizing? Alexander demanded. She's the one who cheated, lied, and then tried to make us think you were the villain. Because no parent wants their children to lose respect for the other parent, Victor explained gently. Despite everything, she's still your mother. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. She's threatening to contest our trust funds, Dad. Says she needs the money for survival during the divorce. Victor felt a surge of protective anger. The trust funds had been established with his mother's inheritance money, specifically designated for the twins' education and future security. She can't touch those, Victor assured them. They were set up as irrevocable trusts precisely to prevent this kind of situation. That's what we thought, Alexander said. But she's been acting so desperate, unpredictable. Leave Laurel to me and the lawyers, Victor told them firmly. You two focus on school. That's your only responsibility right now. After reassuring the twins and sending them back to their mother's house to collect their belongings before returning to college, Victor received a call from Patricia Walden. I've reviewed Ms. Quinn's evidence, Patricia reported. It's substantial and credible. Multiple documented instances of harassment, clear retaliation patterns. The recordings alone would give Pinnacle's legal team nightmares. And Laurel? Is she mentioned? Not directly in the harassment materials, Patricia answered. But there are calendar entries showing regular private meetings with your wife, often scheduled at the Meridian. Corroborates our existing evidence. Victor made his decision. Bring Ms. Quinn onto the legal team as a consultant. Standard confidentiality agreements, generous compensation. And Patricia? Move up our timeline. I want to present our full divorce proposal at Monday's mediation. That's aggressive, Patricia noted. Laurel's team will be unprepared. Exactly, Victor confirmed. It's time to change the game. That evening, Victor met with Bennett at his penthouse to discuss the next phase of their business partnership, the strategic land acquisition that would position them to compete directly with Thorne's planned development. The parcels outlined in red are already secured, Bennett explained, indicating areas on a large map spread across Victor's dining table. The yellow section is the critical connection. Without it, the project loses viability. Who owns the yellow parcel? Victor asked. That's the interesting part, Bennett grinned. Officially, a holding company called Westside Ventures. But dig deeper, and it's controlled by none other than Martin Wells. Thorne's HR director? Victor raised an eyebrow. The one who buried Natalie Quinn's harassment claims? Bennett nodded. Appears our friend Thorne rewarded Wells with a silent partnership in this side venture. They purchased the land 5 years ago for pennies on the dollar when the original developer went bankrupt. Victor studied the map thoughtfully. What's Wells' asking price? He doesn't know we're interested yet, Bennett explained. But preliminary inquiries through intermediaries suggest they value it at around $5 million. Offer $7 million, Victor instructed. Cash, quick closing, no contingencies. But through shell companies. Wells can't know we're the buyers until after closing. Bennett whistled low. That's $2 million over asking. You sure about this? It's not just about the land, Victor explained. It's about timing and positioning. Once we control that parcel, Thorne's development becomes unfeasible without our cooperation. As Bennett departed with their new strategy in motion, Victor received a text from an unknown number. Thorne canceled all meetings tomorrow. Taking your wife to his lake house for the weekend. Thought you should know. NQ. Victor smiled grimly. Perfect timing. With Laurel and Thorne away, certain other pieces could be moved into position undisturbed. He made one final call for the evening, to Keith Sullivan at First Regional Bank. Sullivan, the banker, answered gruffly. It's Victor. I need to accelerate the financing on our discussed project. And I need it done quietly. How quietly? No electronic documentation until Monday, Victor specified. Paper only, in-person signatures. Sullivan's interest was clearly piqued. That's unusual, even for you, Mercer. There's a significant opportunity emerging, Victor explained vaguely. Time sensitive. My office, 7 a.m. tomorrow, Sullivan agreed. Bring coffee. As Victor ended the call, He gazed out at the city lights, feeling the pieces of his strategy aligning. Laurel and Thorne believed they held the advantage, that Victor was merely reacting to their moves, playing defense while they controlled the game. They would learn otherwise. Very soon. Chapter 6. The board is set. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. Victor adjusted his tie in the mirror of the downtown mediation center's restroom, his expression betraying nothing of the calculated anticipation he felt inside. The weekend had been productive. While Laurel and Thorne enjoyed their romantic getaway at his lake house, documented discreetly by Patricia's private investigator, Victor had finalized the land purchase through Bennett, secured financing from Sullivan's bank, and integrated Natalie Quinn's evidence into his divorce strategy. A text from Patricia confirmed she was waiting in the mediation room with their complete proposal. Laurel and her attorney, Gerald Hoffman, a divorce lawyer known for aggressive tactics and media manipulation, had arrived minutes earlier. Victor entered the mediation room to find Laurel dressed in conservative navy blue, her expression a careful mask of wounded dignity. Hoffman, a sharp-featured man in an expensive suit, was arranging documents with theatrical precision. Victor, Laurel acknowledged, her voice soft and vulnerable, a stark contrast to her vicious words the day he'd left. "You're looking well." Victor nodded politely, but addressed the mediator rather than his wife. "Thank you for accommodating this session on short notice, Ms. Rivera." Elena Rivera, a respected family court mediator with 20 years of experience, gestured for everyone to be seated. "Before we begin, I want to clarify that my role is to facilitate communication and help identify possible solutions, not to impose decisions. Are we all clear on that?" After receiving affirmative responses, Rivera continued, "Mrs. Mercer's attorney requested this mediation, so I'll allow him to present first." Hoffman launched into a well-rehearsed presentation, portraying Laurel as a devoted wife blindsided by Victor's inexplicable abandonment. He outlined demands that included the family home, 60% of all marital assets, substantial monthly support, and partial ownership of Victor's construction company. Additionally, Hoffman concluded, "We request that Mr. Mercer cease his campaign of defamation against Mrs. Mercer in the business community, which has caused her significant professional embarrassment." Victor maintained a neutral expression throughout, making occasional notes, but offering no reaction to the increasingly outrageous claims. When Hoffman finished, Rivera turned to Patricia. "Ms. Walden, your response?" Patricia smiled pleasantly. "Rather than responding point by point to Mr. Hoffman's creative narrative, we've prepared a comprehensive settlement proposal." She distributed bound presentation folders to everyone present. "You'll find our offer is both fair and final." Laurel opened her folder, her confident expression faltering as she scanned the contents. Hoffman's reaction was more dramatic. He physically recoiled before composing himself. "This is outrageous," he sputtered. "You're offering Mrs. Mercer basically nothing." "On the contrary," Patricia countered calmly. "Mr. Mercer is offering exactly what Mrs. Mercer is entitled to under their prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause, which, as you can see from Exhibit A, has been thoroughly documented." The mediator reviewed the evidence photos of Laurel and Thorne entering hotels, time-stamped receipts, text message transcripts, and most damaging of all, stills from security footage showing them in intimate situations in Thorne's office after hours. "This is an invasion of privacy," Hoffman protested. "Possibly illegal surveillance. All obtained through legal means," Patricia assured him, as detailed in the investigator's affidavit in Appendix B. Laurel had gone pale, her eyes fixed on a particular photo showing her and Thorne in a compromising position in his car outside her office building. "Furthermore," Patricia continued, "Mrs. Mercer's claim to Mr. Mercer's business is particularly baseless, as demonstrated in Section 3. Not only was the company established prior to their marriage with separate funds, but Mrs. Mercer signed multiple acknowledgments throughout the marriage confirming the business as separate property." Victor finally spoke, addressing Laurel directly. "I'm offering you the guest house property at Lake Windermere, your vehicle, your personal possessions, and a one-time settlement of $250,000. It's more than fair, given the circumstances. Fair. Laurel's shock gave way to fury. After 15 years? 2 children? This is insulting. Perhaps, Victor acknowledged, but it's legally sound and generous compared to what the prenup actually entitles you to. Hoffman leaned over to whisper urgently in Laurel's ear, likely advising her to maintain composure. There's another aspect you should consider, Patricia added, directing everyone to Section 4 of the proposal. Mr. Mercer has no intention of publicly disclosing the cause of this divorce, provided this matter is settled quickly and privately. However, should Mrs. Mercer pursue protracted litigation, these materials would necessarily become part of the public record. The implication was clear. Fight this, and the evidence of Laurel's affair would become public knowledge, potentially damaging her professional reputation irreparably. Laurel's eyes narrowed. This is blackmail. Not at all, Patricia corrected. Simply a statement of procedural fact. Court filings are public records. The mediator, maintaining professional neutrality despite the obvious tension, suggested a brief recess to allow Laurel and her attorney to review the proposal privately. Once Laurel and Hoffman left the room, Rivera gave Victor and Patricia a measured look. That was quite the shock and awe approach. Sometimes clarity is kindest, Patricia replied smoothly. Prolonging inevitable outcomes only increases legal fees and emotional damage. When Laurel and Hoffman returned 30 minutes later, the change in atmosphere was palpable. Hoffman's aggressive confidence had been replaced by a resignation that suggested he'd failed to convince Laurel to reject the offer outright. We need time to properly evaluate this proposal, Hoffman stated formally. We request a 1-week adjournment. That's reasonable, Victor agreed, surprising Laurel. But with one condition. During this week, there will be no withdrawal of funds from joint accounts, no removal of property from the family home, and no further defamatory statements about me to our children or business associates. Laurel flushed. I haven't. We accept those terms, Hoffman interrupted, clearly trying to prevent his client from saying something damaging. As the session concluded, Laurel approached Victor while the attorneys spoke with the mediator. You've changed, she observed, searching his face. The Victor the first knew would never have been this calculating. The Victor you knew trusted you, he replied simply. Perhaps you never really knew me at all. Laurel's expression hardened. Don't think this is over. Dominic has resources you can't imagine. He won't take this lying down. I'm counting on that, Victor said with a slight smile. Give him my regards. Outside the mediation center, Bennett was waiting by Victor's car with barely contained excitement. It's done, Bennett announced as Victor approached. Wells signed the papers this morning. We now control the yellow parcel. Thorne's project is effectively blocked. Victor nodded in satisfaction. And Sullivan's financing? Secured and funded. The new LLC is officially operational. Excellent. Victor checked his watch. What time is the Pinnacle board meeting? 2:00, Bennett confirmed. According to our source, Thorne's presenting his development project as the centerpiece. Perfect timing, Victor noted. Is everything prepared for Phase 3? Bennett patted his briefcase. All ready for your review. As they drove toward Victor's office, Patricia called with an update. Hoffman just contacted me, she reported. They want to meet again tomorrow instead of waiting a week. I think Laurel's realizing her position is weaker than she thought. Schedule it for 4 p.m., Victor instructed. That gives us time to execute the remaining steps. There's something else, Patricia added. Natalie Quinn received termination papers from Pinnacle this morning, effective immediately with no severance. They're claiming breach of confidentiality clauses. Victor frowned. Thorne's moving faster than expected. Have Quinn meet us at the office in an hour. We need to adjust our timeline. The chess match had accelerated. Laurel and Thorne were finally beginning to realize they weren't facing the predictable, accommodating Victor of old. But they had yet to comprehend just how thoroughly he had transformed or how meticulously he had prepared for this confrontation. By nightfall, everything would change. Chapter 7, First Blood. At precisely 1:45 p.m., Natalie Quinn entered the Pinnacle Industries headquarters for the first time since her demotion months earlier. Dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit, visitor badge prominently displayed, she maintained a confident stride past security and into the executive elevator bank. Inside her purse was a USB drive containing select evidence from her harassment case against Thorne, along with documentation of his questionable business practices, all carefully curated by Victor's legal team to maximum effect. Her destination: the boardroom where Thorne would soon present his development project to Pinnacle's directors. Meanwhile, Victor and Bennett stood in the lobby of First Regional Bank, finalizing paperwork with Keith Sullivan. The press release goes out at 2:30, Sullivan confirmed. Right in the middle of Thorne's presentation. Victor nodded approval. Perfect. The documents they signed formalized the creation of Mercer Foster Development Group, a new entity capitalized with $50 million to develop the very land Thorne had been targeting, land that Victor and Bennett now controlled through their strategic acquisition of the connecting parcel. Across town, Patricia Walden was meeting with the twins in her office, explaining the revelations about their mother's affair and the true state of their parents' divorce proceedings. Your father wanted to protect you from this, Patricia explained gently. But given your mother's attempts to involve you, he felt you deserved the unvarnished truth. Alexander and Sophia reviewed the evidence solemnly, their expressions shifting from disbelief to hurt to anger. Dad said he wouldn't contest us staying with Mom when we visit, Alexander noted. Even after all this, your father loves you both unconditionally, Patricia affirmed. That hasn't changed and won't change, regardless of what happens between him and your mother. Sophia wiped away tears. What should we do now? That's entirely your decision, Patricia counseled. Your father only asks that you make choices based on complete information rather than one-sided narratives. Back at Pinnacle Industries, the board meeting commenced with Dominic Thorne at the head of the table, exuding his characteristic confidence as he outlined his vision for Pinnacle Plaza, a mixed-use development project he claimed would transform the city's western corridor. The beauty of this opportunity, Thorne explained, gesturing at architectural renderings, is our early acquisition of the key properties. While competitors were focusing elsewhere, we quietly secured the essential parcels through strategic partnerships. Board members nodded appreciatively, until the boardroom door opened and Martin Wells, the HR director, entered ashen-faced, clutching his phone. "Excuse me, Mr. Thorne," Wells interrupted urgently. "There's an emergency situation requiring immediate attention." Thorne's irritation at the interruption was evident. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of a presentation." "It's regarding the West Side project," Wells insisted. "There's been a development." Thorne stepped away from the table, huddling with Wells in the corner as the board chairman, Harold Vance, checked his buzzing phone. "Dominic," Vance called out, frowning at his screen. "Why am I receiving press notifications about a new development project on our targeted land? Something called Mercer Foster Development Group." Thorne snatched the phone, his face darkening as he read the announcement detailing how Victor Mercer and Bennett Foster had secured the crucial connecting property and obtained $50 million in financing to develop a competing project, effectively rendering Pinnacle's plans worthless without their cooperation. "This is impossible," Thorne muttered. Wells assured me he controlled that parcel. All eyes turned to Wells, who seemed to shrink under the collective scrutiny. "I did," Wells stammered, "through West Side Ventures. But apparently it was sold Friday. Without my knowledge." "Without your knowledge?" Thorne repeated incredulously. "You're the primary owner." "I'm a minority partner," Wells corrected, avoiding eye contact. "The majority stakeholder made the decision." "And who might that be?" Vance demanded. Before Wells could answer, another interruption occurred. Natalie Quinn entered the boardroom, followed by Pinnacle's corporate counsel, Susan Chun. "Mr. Vance," Chun addressed the chairman directly, ignoring Thorne. "Ms. Quinn has brought certain materials to my attention that the board needs to review immediately." "This is outrageous," Thorne protested. "Quinn was terminated for cause this morning. She has no business being here." "Actually," Chun contradicted, "the termination appears procedurally questionable, especially given the timing relative to her protected disclosure." "Protected disclosure?" Vance echoed, confusion evident. Chun distributed tablets to each board member. Ms. Quinn filed a formal sexual harassment complaint against Mr. Thorne 6 months ago. It was mishandled by HR. She's now provided comprehensive documentation, including recorded interactions. The boardroom erupted in murmurs as directors began reviewing the material. This is a coordinated attack, Thorne insisted desperately. Quinn is working with Victor Mercer, the husband of an employee I mentored. He's bitter about his failing marriage and trying to sabotage me professionally. Vance's expression hardened as he continued scrolling through the evidence. Mentored? These text messages suggest something quite different, Dominic. While chaos unfolded at Pinnacle, Victor received confirmation that the press release had gone live. He then made a personal call to Laurel. Victor, she answered cautiously. I thought we were meeting tomorrow with the lawyers. We are, Victor confirmed. But I thought you might want advance notice of some business developments that could affect your situation. Laurel's voice sharpened. What are you talking about? Check your news alerts, Victor suggested mildly. Particularly regarding Pinnacle Industries and a development project Thorne might have mentioned to you. There was a pause, followed by the sound of rapid typing. Then a sharp intake of breath. You did this deliberately, Laurel accused. To undermine Dominic. Business is business, Victor replied. Though you might want to check on your boyfriend. I hear he's having quite an interesting board meeting right now. What did you do? Laurel demanded, panic edging into her voice. Nothing illegal, I assure you, Victor said. Simply ensure that certain truths came to light. The truth about his business practices, his treatment of female employees, the truth about your relationship. A string of profanities flowed from Laurel before she regained composure. You've made a powerful enemy today. No, Victor corrected. I've neutralized one. There's a difference. By evening, the fallout was spreading rapidly. Financial news outlets reported that Pinnacle's board had called an emergency closed-door session. Dominic Thorne's executive assistant confirmed he had left the building visibly agitated. Martin Wells had been seen exiting with security escorts. Victor received updates from multiple sources, including Natalie Quinn, who called from a company SUV provided by Patricia Walden. The board was stunned, Natalie reported, especially by the recordings where Thorne explicitly offered promotions in exchange for personal attention. And a land deal? Victor inquired. The cherry on top, Natalie confirmed. Wells finally admitted that the majority owner of the crucial parcel was actually Thorne himself, using Wells as a front to avoid conflict of interest questions. When they realized Thorne had been developing a project that would personally enrich him without full disclosure to the board, they recognized the pattern. Victor finished for her. Exactly. Vance called for a vote of confidence right there. It didn't go Thorne's way. Victor smiled slightly. In your situation, Chun, the corporate counsel, practically begged me not to file external complaints. They're offering a settlement package that would make your eyes water. You've earned it, Victor assured her. Don't accept their first offer. After ending the call, Victor waited for the inevitable. It came 30 minutes later, a call from Dominic Thorne himself. Mercer, Thorne growled without preamble. You think you're clever, don't you? Hello, Dominic, Victor replied calmly. Rough day. You've made a catastrophic mistake, Thorne threatened. I built Pinnacle from nothing. The board needs me. This little coup attempt will backfire spectacularly. From nothing, Victor echoed. Interesting revision of history, considering your father founded the company and handed you control. But then, reinventing reality seems to be a specialty of yours. Thorne's breathing became ragged with fury. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Actually, Victor countered, it is. The board has seen the evidence, not just of your harassment patterns, but of your self-dealing, your misuse of company resources, your systematic exploitation of female employees. The facade has cracked, Dominic. And once trust is broken at that level, it's irreparable. You know nothing about business at my level, Thorne sneered. I have friends, allies, resources. Victor corrected. Past tense. Check your email. The press release announcing your resignation to pursue other opportunities goes out tomorrow morning. Drafted by Pinnacle's crisis management team an hour ago. A moment of stunned silence followed before Thorne found his voice again. This is Laurel's fault. If she hadn't been so sloppy, so desperate. Don't blame Laurel for your downfall, Victor interrupted. You engineered this yourself, one selfish decision at a time. She was just the final link in a long chain of poor choices. You'll regret this, Thorne promised, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Both of you. Victor remained unfazed. Good night, Dominic. I believe your severance agreement includes professional counseling. I recommend taking advantage of it. After ending the call, Victor gazed out at the city lights from his penthouse window. Phase 1 of his plan had concluded more successfully than anticipated. Thorne had been neutralized professionally, his reputation critically damaged. The land acquisition had secured Victor and Bennett's position in the market, while simultaneously undermining Pinnacle's expansion plans. Tomorrow would bring the second mediation session with Laurel, who would now be facing the prospect of divorce without Thorne's financial and emotional support, her leverage significantly diminished. Yet Victor felt no triumph, only a cold satisfaction that justice was unfolding according to plan. The husband who had left their house a week after the anniversary party, confused, hurt, reactive, was gone. In his place stood a man who had discovered his own capacity for strategic ruthlessness. And he wasn't finished yet, not even close. Chapter 8: Exposures and Ultimatums. The following day's mediation session had been relocated to Patricia Walden's office at Victor's request, a subtle power play that placed Laurel and her attorney on unfamiliar ground. Victor arrived early, reviewing final adjustments to their settlement proposal with Patricia. Thorne's official resignation was announced this morning, Patricia reported, sliding a tablet across the desk. Stock dropped 12% in the first hour of trading. Victor scanned the press release, noting the carefully crafted corporate language that simultaneously praised Thorne's contributions while establishing distance from his personal choices. And Laurel's position, he inquired. According to my sources, she's been placed on administrative leave pending review. Apparently, the board is concerned about potential conflicts of interest and inappropriate relationships with senior management. Victor nodded thoughtfully. Laurel's professional situation was unraveling precisely as he'd anticipated. With her high-powered position at Pinnacle compromised and Thorne neutralized, she'd lost her two primary advantages. At precisely 4 p.m., Laurel arrived with Gerald Hoffman. The change in her demeanor was striking. Gone was the confident executive in designer attire, replaced by a woman in simple business casual clothing, dark circles visible beneath her makeup. Thank you for accommodating our request to move up the meeting, Hoffman began, his earlier aggression notably tempered. Mrs. Mercer has reviewed your proposal and has some thoughts. Before we address that, Patricia interjected smoothly. There have been developments requiring modifications to our offer. She distributed updated settlement documents. Laurel paled as she scanned the revisions. This is absurd, she protested. You've reduced the cash settlement from $250,000 to $100,000 and removed the Lake Windermere property entirely. Victor leaned forward. Consider it an adjustment reflecting your changed circumstances. Without Thorne's backing, your negotiating position has significantly weakened. You're punishing me because Dominic resigned? Laurel's voice rose incredulously. I'm acknowledging reality, Victor corrected. The original offer assumed ongoing employment at your current salary, certain relationship expectations, and different public circumstances, all of which have changed. Hoffman whispered urgently to Laurel, who shook him off impatiently. I reject this revised offer categorically, Laurel declared. I'll take my chances in court. Victor exchanged a glance with Patricia, who nodded almost imperceptibly. That would be unwise, Victor advised calmly, particularly given what else we've discovered. Patricia produced another folder, this one unmarked. Mrs. Mercer, are you familiar with the investment account at Somerset Partners? Laurel's expression flickered with recognition before smoothing into practiced neutrality. I don't know what you're talking about. That's strange, Patricia noted, considering your signature appears on the account opening documents from 14 months ago. An account that's received regular deposits totaling just under $175,000. money diverted from joint funds without Mr. Mercer's knowledge or consent. That's a separate issue. Hoffman attempted to intervene. If such an account exists, it could be addressed in the overall asset division. It's particularly relevant, Patricia countered, because it demonstrates a pattern of financial infidelity that predates the physical infidelity. Mrs. Mercer began systematically hiding assets while presenting herself as committed to the marriage. Laurel's composure cracked. It was my money, too. I earned it. Some of it, certainly, Victor acknowledged. But transferring funds from joint accounts without disclosure constitutes financial misconduct under state law, a fact I'm sure Mr. Hoffman has explained. Hoffman's pained expression confirmed that he had indeed advised Laurel of this legal reality. Furthermore, Patricia continued relentlessly, there's the matter of the West Haven Consulting LLC, registered in your maiden name, which received consulting fees from Pinnacle Industries beginning 3 months after you joined the company. Laurel's hands trembled slightly. That was for legitimate advisory work outside my normal duties. Perhaps, Patricia allowed. Though the timing, coinciding with the start of your relationship with Mr. Thorne, raises questions about the nature of services rendered. Questions Pinnacle's board might find interesting during their current review of executive conduct. Victor watched his wife carefully, recognizing the moment her calculated facade fully collapsed. Laurel had always prided herself on control of her image, her career, her relationships. Now, that control was disintegrating before his eyes. What do you want? Laurel finally asked, her voice barely audible. The original proposal, Victor stated simply, signed today, with an added clause requiring mutual non-disparagement and confidentiality. That's all. Laurel's suspicion was evident. After everything you claim I've done, I have no interest in publicly humiliating you or destroying your future prospects, Victor explained. I want this chapter closed cleanly and completely. Hoffman leaned over to consult with Laurel, but she waved him away again. Give us the room, she requested firmly. I want to speak with Victor alone. After the attorneys reluctantly withdrew, Laurel's professional mask dissolved entirely. How did you become this? Calculating, she asked, genuine bewilderment in her voice. The Victor I knew couldn't have orchestrated all this. Perhaps you never really knew me, Victor suggested. Or perhaps losing everything that mattered revealed what was always there beneath the surface. Laurel studied him with new awareness. You let me underestimate you. Deliberately. For 15 years, Victor confirmed. I mistook your ambition for passion, your manipulation for intelligence. I worked 80-hour weeks building something for us while you built escape routes. It wasn't all a lie, Laurel insisted, a hint of desperation creeping into her voice. The early years before the twins were born. We were happy then, weren't we? Victor considered this. Perhaps. Or perhaps we were playing roles we thought we should play. The ambitious young couple building their dream life. And now you've destroyed everything I've built, Laurel observed bitterly. My career, my reputation, my future with Dominic. You destroyed those things yourself, Victor corrected. I simply ensured there were consequences. Laurel's eyes narrowed. There's something you're not telling me. This vengeance seems disproportionate, even for infidelity. Victor remained silent, his expression impassive. Unless, Laurel's eyes widened with sudden realization. You knew, before the anniversary party. Before I said those terrible things. You already knew about Dominic and me. Bennett tried to tell me the night of the party, Victor confirmed, when you interrupted us to have Thorne give his speech. But then why wait? Why let me humiliate you publicly before leaving? I needed to see how far you'd go, Victor explained quietly. Whether there was anything left worth salvaging. When you called me a loser and declared Thorne more valuable than your husband of 15 years, you answered that question definitively. Tears welled in Laurel's eyes, whether from genuine remorse or self-pity. Victor couldn't tell and no longer cared. What will you tell the children? She asked. The truth, if they ask. They deserve that much. They'll hate me. That's between you and them, Victor replied. I won't encourage it, but I won't lie to protect your image either. Laurel wiped her eyes, visibly gathering her remaining dignity. I'll sign your agreement. But I want one thing in return. You're not in a position to negotiate, Victor reminded her. Just one thing, Laurel insisted. Tell me when you became this ruthless. The man I married would have forgiven me, tried to save our marriage, gone to counseling. Anything but this calculated destruction. Victor considered her request. I became this way the moment I realized that 15 years of loyalty meant nothing to you. That everything I'd built could be dismissed with a single cruel sentence. But the capacity was always there, dormant until you awakened it. And now, Laurel pressed, once this divorce is final, will you go back to being the old Victor? There is no old Victor anymore, he answered truthfully. He died the night of our anniversary party. Laurel nodded slowly, acceptance finally settling in her eyes. I'll sign the papers. When the attorneys returned, they found Victor and Laurel sitting in silence. The invisible bonds of their marriage already severed long before the legal documents would confirm it. As Laurel signed each page of the agreement, Victor felt no triumph, only a cold certainty that justice had been served. The woman signing away her claims to the life they'd built together was a stranger to him now, someone he'd once loved but no longer recognized. Later that evening, as Victor sat alone in his penthouse, he received a text from Sophia. Just heard about Mom's job situation. Are you behind that too? Victor responded truthfully. I ensured the truth came to light. The consequences were of her own making. After a long pause, Sophia replied, Mom says you've changed. Become ruthless. Victor considered how to respond, finally typing, I've become clear about what matters. Loyalty, honesty, respect. I won't compromise on those anymore. Good, came Sophia's unexpected response. The old you let people take advantage. Alex and I are on your side, Dad. Always. As Victor set down his phone, he realized that from the ashes of his destroyed marriage, something valuable had emerged. A newfound respect from his children, who had witnessed his transformation from accommodating husband to principled force. The final pieces of his plan were falling into place. Tomorrow would bring the concluding act, one that would ensure neither Laurel nor Thorn would ever threaten what he valued again. Chapter 9. The New Normal. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Victor stood at the edge of a construction site overlooking the river, watching as crews poured the foundation for what would become Riverfront Commons, the mixed-use development that had risen from the ashes of Thorn's failed Pinnacle Plaza project. Bennett approached, hard hat in hand, surveying the progress with evident satisfaction. The commercial space is already 85% pre-leased. At this rate, we'll be profitable before the first tenant moves in. Victor nodded, taking quiet pride in their achievement. Mercer Foster Development Group had quickly established itself as a formidable presence in the regional market, their reputation for ethical business practices and innovative design attracting premium clients. How's the family housing component coming along? Victor inquired, referring to the affordable units they'd incorporated into the design, a feature absent from Thorn's original concept. Ahead of schedule, Bennett confirmed. The city council is thrilled. The mayor wants to do a press event next month to showcase it as a model for future developments. As they discussed technical details, Victor's phone vibrated with a text from Alexander. Graduation details confirmed. May 15th, 2 p.m. Will you bring Paula? Victor smiled slightly as he typed back. Wouldn't miss it. And yes, Paula will join us. Paula Reynolds had entered Victor's life unexpectedly, a widowed architect he'd hired to design Riverfront Commons Central Plaza. Their professional relationship had gradually evolved in a friendship, and, recently, something more. Unlike his relationship with Laurel, built on youthful idealism and shared ambition, what he shared with Paula was founded on mutual respect, shared values, and clear-eyed understanding of who they were as individuals. How's Paula's plaza design coming along? Bennett inquired, noticing Victor's expression. Brilliant as usual, Victor replied. She's incorporated sustainable elements that will reduce operating costs by nearly 30% compared to traditional designs. Their conversation was interrupted by Patricia Walden's arrival. The attorney joined them at the site's edge, her expression unreadable. I thought you'd want to hear this in person, she began without preamble. Dominic Thorne is leaving the country. Accepted a position with a development firm in Dubai. Victor absorbed this information thoughtfully. Running away? More like slinking away, Patricia clarified. After the sexual harassment settlements and the board's public distancing, his options here became severely limited. His reputation in the industry is essentially radioactive. And Laurel? Victor asked, more out of curiosity than concern. Working for a small marketing firm in Minneapolis, Patricia reported. Near her sister, I believe. The position is several steps down from her previous status. Victor nodded, feeling no satisfaction or regret, just acknowledgement of natural consequences. After the divorce was finalized, he had maintained his promise not to actively damage Laurel's prospects. However, the fallout from her association with Thorne had made high-level executive positions inaccessible without his intervention. The twins know? He asked. Sophia mentioned it when we had lunch last week, Patricia confirmed. They've maintained minimal contact with her. Polite, but distant. Despite everything, Victor had never encouraged his children to cut ties with their mother. He had simply presented the unvarnished truth and allowed them to make their own judgments. Both Alexander and Sophia, now finishing their junior year of college, had chosen to limit their relationship with Laurel to obligatory holiday calls and occasional visits. There's one more thing, Patricia added, extracting an envelope from her briefcase. Laurel sent this to my office for you. It was delivered yesterday. Victor accepted the envelope with mild surprise. He had not directly communicated with Laurel since the divorce was finalized. I'll leave you to it, Patricia said tactfully, moving away to join Bennett in discussion with the site foreman. Victor opened the envelope to find a handwritten letter. Something so anachronistic it momentarily transported him back to their early days, when Laurel had written him love notes during their long-distance phase. Victor, I've debated writing this for months, unsure if you'd read it or simply discard it. If you're reading these words, thank you for that small courtesy. I'm leaving Minnesota next month for a position in Seattle. Before this chapter closes completely, I felt compelled to acknowledge some truths, if only for my own conscience. You were right. About everything. The affair with Dominic began long before you suspected. The separate accounts were my exit strategy. The cruel words at our anniversary party and after were calculated to drive you away, so I could blame you for our failing marriage. Why didn't anticipate was your response. The Victor the first thought I knew would have fought to save us, would have forgiven my transgression, would have offered second chances I didn't deserve. Instead, you revealed a strength and clarity I never knew you possessed. I won't ask for forgiveness. We're well beyond that point. But I want you to know that in destroying what I thought I wanted, you ultimately gave me something valuable, the truth about myself. I've spent these months in therapy confronting the person I became, and I don't like her very much. The children speak of you with respect and admiration. Whatever else I failed at, we raised two remarkable human beings who can recognize integrity when they see it. I hope you found peace in your new life. Perhaps someday I'll find mine. Laurel. Victor refolded the letter carefully, returning it to the envelope. There was a time when such words might have moved him, might have awakened the tenderness that once defined their relationship. Now, they were simply words on paper, an acknowledgement that came far too late to matter. He tucked the envelope into his jacket pocket and rejoined Bennett and Patricia, his focus returning to the project before them. The past had no hold on him anymore. He had built something new from the ruins of Betrayal. Not just this development or his expanded business, but a life defined by his own terms. That evening, Victor hosted a small dinner gathering at his penthouse. Bennett and Diane, Patricia, Paula, and a few trusted colleagues from the construction industry. As conversation flowed around his dining table, Victor found himself observing the scene with quiet satisfaction. These people had proven their loyalty during his darkest moments. They had stood by him when Laurel and Thorne attempted to destroy his reputation and business. They had earned his trust through actions rather than empty words. "You're unusually contemplative tonight," Paula noted softly, taking the seat beside him as others moved to the living room for coffee. "Just appreciating the present," Victor replied truthfully. Paula studied him with the architect's eye for detail that made her so exceptional professionally. Thinking about the letter, Victor had mentioned it briefly before dinner. Not really. It belongs to a closed chapter. You never told me something, Paula said after a moment. When you discovered your wife's betrayal and implemented your response, did you ever consider forgiveness instead? Victor considered the question carefully. No, he answered finally. Not because I couldn't forgive a mistake or momentary weakness, but because what Laurel did wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated series of choices that revealed her true character. And you don't believe people can change? Paula pressed gently. They can't, Victor acknowledged. But change doesn't erase consequences. Laurel chose her path knowing the risks. She gambled and lost. I simply ensured the consequences matched the betrayal. Paula nodded thoughtfully. That's what I admire about you, Victor. Your clarity. You don't confuse forgiveness with weakness or consequences with cruelty. Later, after the guests had departed and Paula had returned to her own apartment, their relationship progressing deliberately rather than rushed, Victor stood at his window overlooking the city lights. In reflection, he recognized that the anniversary party that had shattered his marriage had also liberated him from a relationship built on shifting sand. The man who had packed his bags and walked away that day had been wounded, but not broken. From that pain had emerged someone stronger, clearer, and ultimately more authentic. Someone who understood that loyalty and respect were non-negotiable, and that true strength lay not in forgiveness of the unrepentant, but in the courage to enforce boundaries. His phone chimed with an email notification. The final construction permit approved for Riverfront Commons' second phase. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new horizons. And Victor Mercer would meet them not as the man he once was, but as the man betrayal had forged him to be, unbending, principled, and absolutely clear about what mattered. Some might call him ruthless. Victor preferred to think of it as honest, with himself and with the world. And in that honesty, he had finally found freedom. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.